Hey, friends, and welcome to the Next Best Thing podcast. I'm your host, Aundrea Cline-Thomas. I'm here to help you live the life that you design instead of choosing a life you think you have to settle for. Before we go ahead and dive into this episode, y'all, we are so close to having 1,000 subscribers to this YouTube channel, this little engine that could, right? Like, this is wild. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's super easy. Just go ahead and hit the subscribe button for me, please. Not only will it ensure that you never miss another episode, it will help get this content in front of more people. If you are listening to this on a podcast, audio only, if y'all could still go to YouTube and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. We are so close. We have less than 100 people to get to 1,000 subscribers, and that's like one of the magic numbers in YouTube. I've got another metric that I've got to hit, but it always helps when you have more people who subscribe. Bonus points if you turn on your notifications. So if you could please help a girl out, I would truly, truly appreciate it. This is going to be a solo episode, just you and me. I figured that, we have so many guests on here, and I'm just not here to present information to you all. I'm here taking notes myself. And for those who don't know my story, I was in local news. I was on television for more than 15 years in different markets, including New York City was my last on-air job. And I left in July of 2022 to essentially blow my whole life up. You see that when you are on air in news, you cannot really moonlight doing other things. So, like having other jobs, you can be a professor. Your schedule is so crazy, though. Sometimes that becomes difficult to have other jobs anyway, but you really can't. They make it very, very difficult for you to make money any other way. And so a lot of people leave for another job, which makes sense, right? You probably should do that. There's security in that. Problem was, I didn't want another job. I didn't want to be in another corporate environment. I had a lot of workplace stuff, trauma, honestly, and I just could not see myself in another traditional corporate environment. And I didn't want to go to another newsroom. And so I just jumped off the cliff and into entrepreneurship. And so my idea at first was just I created an LLC, and I was just going to house all of my freelance projects, just do freelance. I was like, I'm just going to do all that under this entity. Like, that has now evolved greatly. And I'll talk about that really quickly in a little bit. But I had a gig when I left, and then I just started picking up other gigs, including a whole job, right? Like it was a remote job, a hybrid job, really. I was in the office. It was a news job. I was behind the scenes for this startup. But in August of 2023, I left that position. So I was 100% willy-nilly on my own. I needed to rest and relax and still deal with my stuff. There was a lot of stuff that I hadn't dealt with. And then I had to figure out, like, what am I doing? I had contracts. So that was great. And because I was working in a job and I had contracts outside of the job that I was working, I had saved a ton of money, and I had done, not a ton, I had saved a good amount of money. And so I was able to have some flexibility at the end of the year to kind of just chill, figure things out. So that's what I wanted to talk about, because during that time, something came up for me. And even at the beginning of the year, something came up for me, and it's since kind of gone full circle. And so the whole point of this, this is taking me a minute to get into it, but the whole point of this discussion that I want to have with you today is raising the question, how are you waiting? Like, how do you wait when the thing that you can see in your mind is not yet a reality, and you are just working your damnedest to make it a reality? That gap in between, how are you waiting? And I kept on asking myself that from like October. And so I first was like, all right, I need to get disciplined. I work. I'm a worker, right? Like I will dive into work. I haven't always been, I get jobs done, but in my personal life, I haven't always been super disciplined. But now in the space, I am more disciplined than I've ever been in my life. And so I set up a routine. Like, what do? You create a system, right? Wake up early. This is when I was working out. And then I would, I would say, I think it was sending 10 emails a week, cold emails, trying to solicit business. I'm still doing the podcast. I already had a gig media training that was a very good gig, a corporate contract for that. So that helped me out quite a bit. And I was doing that. I would go into my co-working space a little bit, not as much as I needed to. And I was setting up some meetings. I was like, okay. But then it came to a point where it wasn't going anywhere. Nothing was going anywhere. And so towards the end of the year, or at the end of the year, really in December, I started working with a business coach. And it's shout out to my girl, Ariel Dean. I need to get her on the podcast. She is my childhood friend who we literally went to elementary, middle, and high school together. We also went to the same church. So there are a few people in my life, especially who are not family, that I can't remember not knowing. I've known her my whole life pretty much. Like I remember being in like kindergarten in the first grade, and I remember her family. So she put on Facebook, which I'm not even on Facebook like that. She put on Facebook that she was finishing up a coaching program, and she needed to have some coaching hours, and so she was seeking clients for that. And so I signed up for 4 sessions because I needed to come up with a plan for this year. And so we had our sessions. And one of the first questions she asked me was, what has worked for you in the past? And what has worked for me in the past was that everything that I had done since leaving news has come from a contact. It has come from a friend. And so she was just like, why don't we lean into that more? Like, who is in your network now? What can you do? And so that taught me that I needed to, like, I'm over here, like, I've sent my 10 emails, like, yes, I done did it. Oh, I set up this meeting, and I set up that thing, and that was okay. But a friend of mine, Deb Boulanger, she calls certain things fake progress, right? It's not having a direct return on investment. What I really needed to do was get off my butt, go into my co-working space that I was paying for every month. They have amazing programming, and start going there and start meeting people and start talking to people and get involved. And I started doing that. So that was great. I was meeting dope people, all like-minded women, who had the spirit of, how can I help? Who do I know? Can I connect you to this person, connect you to that person? All of that, which is fantastic. So that was one thing, because I've been having conversations lately with people who are trying to transition, and they're trying to transition from their couch. And I can just say, I don't know what you need to do, but I can say what has worked for me was getting out the house and going in these streets and going to talk to people, and not just talking to people in a transactional way. I'm having like good kiki with these people, and we're finding our mutual interests. We're finding like our mutual passions, keeping an eye out for each other, checking up on each other. Like, I'm making new friends. So that's number one. Candy Carter talked about that a lot in her episode about how 40% of your job should be making friends. So the other thing was the creating winning habits. Like, what else could I do? I got a demo reel done, which I send out quite a bit, that helps capture what it is that I provide. I started asking for help. I just asked people, look, what do you need? I need X, Y, and Z. I need media training clients. That's what I need. And so this is what I do. I don't do this. I do not do PR. But what I do is I help people find their narrative. I can do, executive producing. I can do, different things. Let them know this is what I do. And they're like, bet, I'm going to keep you in mind. Another thing that I switched to towards the end of last year, I ramped it up also because I had a social media team help me with this podcast. They came in November, I want to say maybe mid to late November. So that freed up my time. I started doubling down on LinkedIn. Why am I telling you all of this stuff? It's because in April, that effort cashed in. So I'm telling you about the things I did October, November, December, January, February, March. Quiet, right? Those were like things started ramping up, but they were quiet. April, explosion. Or end of March, explosion of opportunity. And I said yes to all of them, which is why I am exhausted right now. But so it goes back to the first question of how are you waiting? And it's like, I kept on saying, like, I know I'm doing the right things. It feels right. Another thing that I did was I started, I told you Luminary, my co-working space, it has a lot of classes. And so I started taking a lot of classes, but I also started taking a lot of online classes. And there were just these summits online that I found, and I would sit and I would listen to them. I was diving into podcasts, reading articles. Like that's a journalist in me. Every time I don't know something, I don't sit and say, well, I don't know what to do. I go find the answer. The answer is out there. My situation is not unique. I don't think I'm that special of a person to where I can't find the answer to my question. Somebody's got the answer. And I always feel like I'm just a book away, a podcast away from getting closer to it. But it was quiet. It was quiet for a minute where I was like, oh, I live in New York City. It's expensive over here. And then things just started opening up. One of the things I was able to do is that I was pinch hitting at the Amanda Seales radio show on Urban One, Kathy Hughes's network. And I had met an executive there years ago when I lived in Philly years ago. Like, and we didn't even have like a long interaction. I was still a reporter at that time, and we just had a great moment. I think I interviewed him at this community event, and then we exchanged Instagrams, and we kind of have been following each other. We don't really chat on Instagram, and he DM'd me like, hey, I have an opportunity that you might be interested in, and I think you're the perfect person for it. Hey, can you hop on a call? And I hopped on a call, and it's like I hopped on a call on Tuesday. I was on the team by Friday. They had they had somebody out on leave, an extended leave, and they needed me to come and executive produce for the month. And so I was like, okay, I can do it for the month. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect, right? And so when I was talking to this executive, he was telling me about how he even thought of me, and he was like, man, it was God. It was definitely God, because when I found out that I was going to have this, like, I had to fill this vacancy just for 30 days. I was like, who can I call to do this? And the first thing I did was I went on your social media. I thought your story of how you left this prominent job was so interesting. I thought you'd be really good for this. And that's when I reached out to you. But he said he went on my social media, right? What if I had been bashful? What if I had been quiet? What if I have not, had not shared? Nobody knows. Nobody would know that, like, this is what I'm doing right now. And I think oftentimes, like in news, you're kind of reared, you're groomed to kind of keep your mouth shut about yourself. It's always about the story. Just share the story, promote the story so they can go to the station's website and the station can get the click, but you're not necessarily centering yourself or centering your skills or centering how you add value. And if any of you follow me on LinkedIn, I am on there all the time. Okay. I am posting about 4 times a week, 3 to 4 times a week, leaning more on the 4 times a week. I plan that joint out because I don't know how this goes, but I'm just trying to put myself in the best position to win. Sis is buying plane tickets, okay? And I need to be able to afford them. And so I found that like all of April was just such confirmation, especially after this quiet period where I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know if this is right. I actually have no idea. As I said at the beginning, like my life is a hypothesis. I am just putting this question out there. Can I design life for myself? Can this happen? And I'm baffled every time I get a check. And I was like, ooh, it can. It can. So now I'm working on sustainability, and I have a lot of strategy and plans for that that I've learned through that quiet period of taking that as time to just refine a strategy, asking for help, getting a coach, paying for a coach. Ariel is great, by the way. She's fantastic. And just seeing things differently, being on masterminds, being in challenges, stuff like that. So that's what I'm just here to stop by and say is that from my experience, again, I'm not here to tell you how to do anything, and from my experience, change has come when I have shown up and done the work. Like I get the whole soft girl era thing. I think I just need to redefine it for myself because I am not lounging. I wish I could, but like I don't have a job. Like I don't have a 9 to 5 job where I have a guaranteed check. So lounging is actually not something that I can sit and do right now until I have these systems solidified and in place. Next year, when I have things that are more predictable, things are very unpredictable for me still. And again, I'm just going off of this hypothesis and paying attention to what works and what doesn't work. But I have a lot of conversations because I put myself out there. I have a lot of conversations with people who are telling me, I want to do this. And then I have, then we delve deeper. So what are you doing to make X, Y, and Z happen? Well, I've sent some emails. Oh, but I'm not uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable I'm uncomfortable talking to people I don't know. Oh, I'm really uncomfortable going to events. I don't really like doing that. Oh, well, and it's just kind of like, well, what do you like more? Staying where you are that you don't like? Or like, what's worse? Being where you are that you have said that you don't like? I'm not saying you shouldn't be there. You said that you don't want to be there. Or is it making yourself uncomfortable to benefit in the long run? I'm confused. So it just really taught me that as introverted as I am, now I'm in these streets. I am in these streets. Sis is tired. I am in these streets. I am signing up for the events. College events. I know there might be 2 Black people there because the college I went to was a PWI. There might be 2, maybe 3 Black people there. I'm signing up for some college events that are coming up. My co-working space is my favorite. I miss them. I've been so busy and traveling so much in April that I haven't had a chance to actually go in much. I think I went like twice last month. Going there. I'm looking for events to sign up. I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements as a result. I'm putting you want to know what I'm doing? Go on LinkedIn. I'm going to tell you about myself over and over and over again. Does it feel uncomfortable? Yes. Do I care? No. Because you know what's more uncomfortable? Being broke. That's more uncomfortable. So yes, I'm going to toot my toot. I'm going to toot my horn. I sure am. If it's too much, then what else am I supposed to do? People can't help you if they don't know who you are and they don't know what you need and they don't know what you have to offer. People can't help you. So I'm just trying to put myself in the best position as possible. And let me tell you what has happened. I'm a person, I was just having a talk with a friend today. I was chatting with her about some stuff. And, I was telling her, shout out to Faith. I was telling her that I am always like giving. Like that's just my nature is to give. And if somebody says they need something, my mind is going like, boop, 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 boop. How can I help? Who do I know? And I've always been that person to connect. Or if, like I always say, don't leave a door cracked around me because I'm a bust that joker open and let other people through. If I have the means and the wherewithal and the power to let other people through, I am not a gatekeeper. I There's plenty to go around. Like my destiny is already set. Y'all can't fool with that, right? Like I will help. But I'm in a season where I need help. And that joker is uncomfortable, where you're the one who actually needs help. And guess what? People have helped. People that I've known for 10 years have helped. People that I've met for 2 weeks have helped. Angels are everywhere, but you gotta show up. They're not gonna pick you up from your couch. You gotta show up. And so I'm just really, really grateful, because you should have seen my journal entries of like, "Who, Lord, I know, I know you will make a way." January, and I was like, "What? What's happening?" I know you will make a way, and a way was made. I just had to be consistent. That's a big thing too, is the consistency piece. I couldn't talk about myself once and be like, well, I did that. And I have conversations with folks about that too. No, no, no. I'm going to tell you every single week on Mondays and Thursdays on LinkedIn. I'm going to tell you about this podcast on Instagram. The podcast page, you will know about this podcast 7 days a week. If there was an 8th day, you would know about it on the 8th day too. TikTok, 7 days a week. Sometimes I'm like, well, people get annoyed with me. They might. They might. Does it matter? No, sure doesn't. Because here we are. Here we are. And so I've just had so many reminders in the past few weeks of like, things are moving. I guess I want to leave you with this. When you are like me, let me say what I have recognized is that when I am full steam ahead in this idea, an idea I don't believe I just drummed up myself. I believe this is my destiny. I believe this was given to me. I believe this was placed on my heart. I don't have the full details. I'm just operating from what I know to be true at the moment. And when I get more information, I just add that to the plan. And I know that this is where I should be. Even in the midst, knee deep in uncertainty, I know this is where I need to be. And I knew that I just needed to vote for myself every day, vote for this idea every day, not knowing what it could be. Vote for myself, vote for this idea. When I post stuff and don't nobody say nothing, it doesn't matter, because it's about the consistency. When I make a podcast and if folk don't listen, it doesn't matter, because when people will find it. They might not find it right when you post it. They're going to find it, and it's going to help them when they need it. And so this journey for me, my next, has required so much honesty. It is uncomfortable. It has required me to change. To be in this season, I needed to level up. I was doing great. Before, like outwardly. I needed to get really radically honest, and I needed to level up. I needed to have more of a work ethic. I needed to be consistent. I needed to remove excuses. I needed to keep going. and I needed to get help, get more information as strangers and friends to help your girl out. And ain't no shame in it. It's no shame. There's no shame because nobody knows what we're doing. Like, nobody knows what they're doing. We're all trying to figure it out. And if we can just help each other from the space of our gifts, we'll all be better for it. So if you want to make a change, if you are blowing up your life, I know there's all this stuff about the soft girl era out there. I believe it. I do. I believe in it, but I'm not in that era at the moment. I feel like the soft girl, you got to get to the soft girl space. Because even though I traveled a lot in April, I went on a cruise, like a conference on a cruise boat, Summit at Sea. So we were in Miami, and then we went to the Bahamas and back to Miami. And then I went to Jamaica for a friend's wedding. I was working on the cruise ship, not as much, but I'd wake up, I have to check email. Sometimes at night, I'm writing, I have an email list for the rewrite that I do for journalists. I send out emails for them, and it was like 3:00 in the morning. I went out 3:00 in the morning. I came back and I had to write that email because you have to be consistent. You have to show up for yourself. That's what I have to. Not you. You do whatever works for you. I'm saying what has worked for me. And so it's just been nice in April to bear the fruits of my labor. And I just wanted to share that. If there's something that you want to do, if there's a move that you want to make and what you're doing just isn't working, one, are you putting yourself out there? Are you getting out the house? Are you just doing it from your keyboard, which I started doing? So ain't no shame in that. That's what I thought I needed to do. I had to get out my house. I had to go meet people in person. I had to go talk to them. I had to go put myself out there. So it's possible. And sometimes doing the right things means that you're not going to hear anything. Not for days, not for weeks, but for months. You're not going to, it doesn't mean that you're not doing the right thing. And it doesn't mean that you're not on the right path. And so I got glimmers. To say, this is what you need to do. And you need to tighten it up even more. So I know I have 2 projects that I guess by the time this airs, I wouldn't have finished it. May 8th I have 2 projects that end May 8th, and then I'm get to exhale a little bit, but then I'm working on 2 other projects that are like more personal business building projects that I have to work on before I do some other stuff. But okay, we're going to tie a bow around this. The whole point of this is asking, how are you waiting? How are you waiting? Are you waiting and not doing anything about it and hoping by osmosis stuff will happen? Are you waiting and working? Are you waiting with resentment? Are you waiting with joy? Are you waiting with anticipation? How are you waiting? And does that work for you? We'll be back next week with another episode with a guest. I can't wait for you to hear it. Again, subscribe, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Next Best Thing Pod. On LinkedIn, you can follow me, Aundrea Cline-Thomas, and see all my posts. And don't get tired of my posts now. But if you follow me on LinkedIn or whatever, or wherever it is, like, give me a shout. Say, hey, I listened to the podcast. I'm shocked at who listens. Shocked. Sometimes people are like, I listen. I was like, for real? What? So thank you for being with me today. Hopefully you guys have a great day, and we will be back chatting next week. Take care. Thanks for listening to The Next Best Thing with Aundrea Cline-Thomas, a Mountain Court Media production. The music was written, recorded, and produced by Gavin Casey. also known as dark purple. Now, if you like what you heard, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and write a comment on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to share it with friends. Now, I hope this episode helps you on your journey. See you next time.